Imagine finding out the person you love isn't dating you for you, but for TikTok views. That's exactly what happened to me. My name doesn't really matter for this story, but I want you to understand where I was coming from. I wasn't new to dating, but I also wasn't the type to jump from relationship to relationship. When I met my boyfriend, I thought I'd finally found someone who actually wanted something real. We'd been dating for a while, long enough that it wasn't just surface level anymore. We'd met each other's friends, spent weekends together, had late night talks about the future. The kind of things you don't just do if you're casually passing the time. At least that's what I believed. One thing about him that stood out early on was how much he loved TikTok. At first it seemed harmless, even kind of cute. He'd scroll for hours laughing at dumb trends or showing me videos he thought were funny. Sometimes he'd disappear into that app the way people do with Netflix binges. But I brushed it off. I assumed it was just a hobby. Something he enjoyed the way other people watch sports or play video games. He even made a few videos of his own. And I encouraged him. I figured it was just a creative outlet. Everyone needs something like that, right? But as time went on, I started noticing just how much of his world revolved around TikTok. The late-night scrolling turned into constant notifications during dinner. What I thought were silly little videos, just for fun, slowly became more polished, more staged. I told myself it was nothing, that he just liked being creative and staying busy. And back then, I didn't question it. I really thought he was being genuine with me, with us. It didn't take long before his hobby started bleeding into our actual relationship. He always had his phone out. At first, it was just little things, recording us, cooking together, filming a walk in the park, or catching me off guard while I was laughing. I didn't love it, but I let it slide because I thought it was harmless. But then it started creeping into moments that didn't feel right. There were times we'd argue about something personal, and I'd catch him holding his phone like he was recording, or we'd be having a private conversation. Something raw and real, and I'd notice the camera light reflecting in his eyes. I'd tell him, "Can you not?" And he'd brush it off with a grin, saying, "Relax, I'm just making content. That's who I am. I'm a content guy." I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal, that maybe I was overreacting after all. Everyone posts snippets of their lives online, right? But it still made me uneasy. Some moments should stay private, and I felt like with him, nothing was off limits. Then it got worse. My friends started messaging me out of the blue, sending me TikToks with captions like, "Wait, isn't this about you?" At first, I didn't believe it. I thought they were reaching. But then I watched one and my stomach dropped. There, he was sitting in front of the camera talking about his crazy girlfriend who overreacted about small things, or telling these exaggerated one-sided stories about fights. We'd had stories that painted me as dramatic, insecure, even manipulative. And people in the comments were eating it up, siding with him, calling me toxic when they didn't even know me. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just making TikToks with me. He was making TikToks about me without my consent. Our private relationship had turned into his public content one night. I was scrolling on my own, half bored, half tired, when I stumbled across a video on the For You page. At first, I didn't even recognize it as his, but then I saw his face. My boyfriend sitting there, smirking into the camera, retelling one of our private arguments like it was some comedy skit. He exaggerated my tone, mocked the way I spoke, and twisted the whole thing to make me look like some irrational girlfriend. And the worst part? The video had blown up hundreds of thousands of views, tens of thousands of likes, a flood of comments laughing at me, at us, without even knowing it was real. My stomach sank as I kept scrolling through his page, video after video. Not just arguments, but little quirks about me. Things I thought were intimate, safe hours. The way I organize my closet. How I need silence before bed. The fact that I hate when people leave cabinet doors open, stuff I never imagined strangers on the internet would know about me. And yet, here it was, turned into content for his growing fan base. Some of the videos had millions of views in the comments. God, the comments people were calling me crazy, annoying, saying he should dump me, laughing at details I'd only ever shared with him in confidence. My life, my personality had been chopped up and fed to an audience I never agreed to entertain. That was the moment the floor really dropped out from under me. It wasn't just that he was recording too much. It was that he had been profiting in attention and clout, maybe even in money, from exposing me without my consent. And suddenly, I realized thousands of strangers knew pieces of me that even some of my closest friends didn't. I couldn't sit on it the next time I saw him. I didn't bother with small talk. I held up my phone with one of his videos playing and asked, "Why would you post this? Why would you share our private conversations with strangers?" He barely even flinched. Instead of looking guilty or apologetic, he just shrugged. "Relax. It's just content," he said, like that somehow made it okay. I pushed harder, told him he'd crossed a line, that he'd humiliated me in front of the entire internet, and his response, "You're overreacting. Everyone does it. It's not that deep." I remember staring at him, waiting for something real for him to acknowledge how violated I felt, how betrayed. Instead, he doubled down. Look, those videos are doing numbers. Do you know how hard it is to go viral? This is making me money. We should be happy about it. That was the moment I realized we weren't on the same team at all to him. Our relationship wasn't sacred. It was raw material content views, a stepping stone for his brand. I felt my face burning, partly from anger, partly from the sheer disbelief that the person I trusted most could dismiss me so easily. The memories of all the private moments we shared, every fight, every secret, every silly quirk suddenly felt like weapons in his arsenal. And the worst part was that he didn't see anything wrong with it. After that conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had snapped. Humiliation doesn't even begin to cover it. I felt exposed, betrayed, like I wasn't even a person to him anymore. I wasn't his girlfriend. I was content. A character in the little storyline he was feeding to strangers online for likes, for clout, for money. And the more I thought about it, the more brutal the questions became. Did he ever actually love me, or had he just seen me as good material from the start? Were those late-night talks real, or just future story times? He was banking on every memory started to feel tainted, like I'd been living in some twisted reality show I never agreed to star in. I sat with it for a while, replaying everything in my head, trying to decide if this was something I could forgive, or if it had already destroyed the foundation of our relationship. But every time I imagined staying, I pictured another viral video, another wave of strangers mocking me for things they shouldn't even know. And I realized there was no going back, so I told him it was over, no yelling, no theatrics, just a clean break. He laughed at first, like I was bluffing, like I'd come crawling back once I calmed down. But walking away was the only thing that gave me even a shred of my dignity. Back whether he ever truly loved me. I'll never know. All I know is I'm done being someone else's storyline after the breakup. I did what I had to do. I deleted him, blocked him, cut off every line of contact I could think of. But the damage wasn't something I could just erase with a button. His videos were still out there, floating around in the algorithm, racking up views. Strangers still knew things about me they had no business knowing. And every time someone sent me a clip or I accidentally stumbled across one, it felt like being stabbed all over again. That's the thing about social media. Once something's out there, it's not just content. It lingers. It spreads. It blurs the line between what's real and what's just. For show, for me, the relationship was real for him. Maybe it never was. Maybe it was always just a performance, a storyline with me as the unwilling co-star. And now I keep asking myself, was I naive for thinking love could exist without an audience? Was I foolish for believing I mattered more to him than the views? So here's my question to you. Reddit, would you forgive someone who turned your relationship into TikTok content without your consent? Or is that an unforgivable betrayal?